In Brazil, President Luiz Inácio da Silva signed a decree on Monday to overturn plans to privatize state-owned companies and other measures implemented by the Jair Bolsonaro government. In Argentina, President Alberto Fernández announced that he will push for an impeachment trial against the President of the Supreme Court, Horacio Rosati, for violations in the performance of his duties. And in Afghanistan, the self-proclaimed Islamic State claimed responsibility for last Sunday's suicide bomb attack in the front of the military airport in the country's capital that killed at least 10 people. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. This Monday in Brazil, a series of measures taken by President Luiz Inácio da Silva came into effect. Among them, the overturning of more than a dozen decrees signed during Jair Bolsonaro's government. President Luiz Inácio da Silva suspended the policy of easing arms procurement and halted the privatization process of the oil company Petrobras, the logistic company Correios, and the Brazilian communications company. An international donation fund for the productive development of Amazonian communities, which had been abandoned by the Bolsonaro government, was also recovered. Luiz Inácio da Silva assumed the presidency of Brazil this January 1st before the Brazilian Congress and accompanied by thousands of citizens. The details in the following report by Andrew Vieira and Sebastian Soto.
A child, a black man, a woman, a worker, a teacher, an artisan, a cook, a disabled person, and a little dog, symbol of the Lula Free Vigil. Diversity went up the ramp of the Planalto Palace with the new president and First Lady Jair da Silva. It was the Brazilian people who passed the presidential band to Lula da Silva after his predecessor left the country. An unprecedented event for a historic moment. Speaking to the crowd, the president was touched when he talked about poverty, a priority challenge to be overcome.
Familias completas durmiendo en las calles, enfrentando lluvia, frío y miedo.
They should be in schools, living the childhood they are entitled to. Unemployed workers, displaying banners at the traffic lights with a phrase that we should all be ashamed by. Please, help me.
Pancartas con una frase que nos avergüenza a todos. Por favor, ayúdenme.
On the first morning of 2023, a part of all Brazil was represented among the thousands that crowded Brasilia. You couldn't see where the line of the people who came to see the third mandate with their leader began or ended. Professor Jacqueline dos Santos traveled one day by car with her entire family to be part of the change that begins with a new year.
Of respect for citizenship, of respect for education. That is why we're here, and that is why education transforms, and no one fought for education as Lula did.
The new government will be composed of 37 ministries. Culture, sports, racial equality, agrarian development will return. For the first time in 5 centuries, indigenous people will be represented on the front line of the Brazilian state.
It is a restart of ensuring our rights, and that Lula can provide spaces, which he is already doing with ministries and with rights, mainly with the demarcation of indigenous land throughout our Brazil.
The government that takes office finds a country with 33 million hungry, 10 million unemployed, and 62.5 million people in poverty, in the midst of a present social crisis resulting from a past of anti-democratic attacks, the hope of a future to be built.
It is a 6-year struggle since the coup, and in my house we remember because I came to Lula's first inauguration.
As his first actions, President Lula da Silva maintained the payment of financial aid to the poorest and revoked the decrees that made arms purchases more flexible. Brazil needs food, not bullets.
I will govern for 215 million Brazilians and not just for the ones who voted for me. I will govern for all of you, looking to our common bright future and not through the rearview mirror of a divisive and intolerant past.
Governing for the most impoverished, preserving the environment, recovering international relations, 120 countries were represented at the inauguration. The new government took office promising unity and reconstruction for the next 4 years.
André Vieira e Sebastián Soto, TeleSUR, Brasil.
In Brazil, the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly held a meeting with authorities of the Kingdom of the United Arab Emirates regarding the strategic cooperation between both nations. The meeting between the head of the Venezuelan International Corporation of the United Arab Emirates, Reem bin Ibrahim al-Hashimi, took place this Monday in Brasilia, where they discussed issues of mutual interest with respect to cooperation in energy matters through the Organization of All Exporting Countries, OPEC, and non-OPEC, an organization in which both nations work to maintain the balance in the production of crude oil. In this sense, authorities discussed the promotion of oil, gas, and petrochemical activity in both countries, in addition to promoting investment in various strategic sectors. In Mexico, the death toll rose to 17 after a riot broke out on Sunday at the Social Rehabilitation Center No. 3 in the city of Juarez, Chihuahua State. According to the public ministry, among the dead are 10 officers and 7 prisoners. The ministry also updated the number of injured to 3 officers and 10 prisoners. Meanwhile, according to the most recent report of the State Attorney General's office, at least 27 prisoners managed to escape from the penitentiary center during the event. Meanwhile, the agency continues with the proceedings and investigations for the total understanding of the events. According to local media, the riot occurred after a commando broke into the prison facilities to free 24 inmates. In El Salvador, more than 200 people died in traffic accidents in 2022, according to Civil Protection Chief Luiz Amaya. From November 17 to December 31st, 2022, 203 people died in the 2,301 traffic accidents reported, which also caused injuries to 1,319 people. The Ministry of Public Works said that compared to 2021, there's been a 7.1% drop in traffic accidents, which means 1,333 fewer accidents. Let us take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Argentina's President Alberto Fernández announced that he will initiate impeachment proceedings against the head of the Supreme Court, Horacio Rosati, for violations in the fulfillment of his duties. In a message to the nation, the President announced that judicial officials and opposition politicians maintain a link through dialogues in which they anticipate decisions and recommend grounds to be used when deciding cases with unquestionable institutional importance. In view of this, Fernández added that he will request an investigation on the behavior of the Supreme Court remaining members and summon the governors of the provinces to support the investigative process against Rosati. He also announced that he will order his Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Martin Soria, to investigate alleged acts of corruption between officials of the administration of the city of Buenos Aires and businessmen contractors. In Donbass, at least 6 civilians, including patients and medical staff, were killed Sunday after Ukrainian armed forces shelled a hospital in the town of Pervomaisk in the Lugansk People's Republic. The mayor of the city of Pervomaisk, Sergei Kulyagin, said that the death toll could rise once the debris was removed. The number of casualties had been confirmed by the deputy medical director of the facility, Tatiana Kovaleva. Press reports indicate that at the time of the bombing, physicians were performing a surgical operation and the patient had to be moved to a safe place. The hospital was left in ruins and its surgical units inoperative. At least 3 civilians, including a 3-month baby, were wounded. In France, general practitioners in the private sector announced on Monday the extension of the strike for another week that paralyzes part of the healthcare. Through a statement, the union pointed out that they regret the lack of interest shown by the executive in attacking and correcting the situation in view of the fragility of the health system. They also announced the extension of the strike that seeks to demand an increase in the base rate of consultation from 25 to 50 euros and better working conditions. Additionally, they called for a day of protest on January 5th and demanded better conditions to speed up medical consultations. In Italy, a total of 104,061 migrants disembarked in 2022, a figure much higher than the over 77,000 from the previous year and 3 times those recorded in 2020. According to the latest report issued by the Italian Ministry of the Interior, August was the month in which the largest number of arrivals took place, with 16,822 migrants landing in port. In the second semester, the arrivals increased, particularly at the end of the year in view of the imminent entry into force of a new governmental decree law that intended to stop the flow. This led to December 28th being the day with the highest number of arrivals, with 939 people disembarking. According to the official report, the migrants primarily came from Egypt, Tunisia, Bangladesh, Syria, and Afghanistan. On Monday, the European Parliament's President Roberta Metsola launched an urgent procedure to suspend the immunity of 2 of the body's members. On her Twitter account, Metsola indicated that this is following a request from the Belgian judicial authorities. According to the communiqué of the Parliament, the procedure might be carried out during a plenary session on January 16th, while the announcement did not give the names of the affected deputies. Experts indicate they are Italian Andrea Cosolino and Belgian Mark Tarabella, both linked to the corruption investigation that led to the arrest of Eva Kaili. South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol announced on Monday that his government is discussing with Washington to carry out joint nuclear exercises as regional tensions heighten. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol said that Sunday, South Korea's military must respond firmly to North Korea's hostile actions. Last week, South Korea denounced an alleged air raid with drones, the first violation of its airspace from North Korea in 5 years. The chief of state explained that his military forces must punish any provocation by the enemy with a firm determination to avoid going to war, adding that only firm mental preparation and realistic training of the South Korean army can guarantee national security. In the United States, more than 84,000 homes in 5 states remain without power on Monday due to the onslaught of the weekend's severe winter storm. According to data updated by the Power Outage Monitor, 84,242 customers in California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and Oregon remain in the dark. Sunday's outages affected more than 200,000 families in California and Nevada alone, where severe weather caused flooding in cities and counties. More than 5 inches of rain fell in California's San Francisco Bay Area, while Oakland recorded about 4 inches of precipitation. At least 16 states are under winter and/or wind alerts, and a winter storm is expected to bring near blizzard conditions to the upper Midwest in the coming days. In the Philippines, the death toll has risen to 51 due to floods and landslides affecting the country since last weekend. The National Council for Risk and Disaster Reduction reported that so far 19 people are missing, 16 injured, and more than 51,000 have been evacuated due to persistently heavy rains. They also detailed that some 10,000 people still remain in evacuation centers. The most affected area is the region of northern Mindanao. The agency pointed out that in terms of economic damages, there have been losses of around $20.2 million in infrastructure and $4.4 million in agriculture. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. In Afghanistan, the self-proclaimed Islamic State terrorist group claimed responsibility for the attack occurred last Sunday in front of the military airport in the capital Kabul, which left 10 dead and several wounded. In this context, the terrorist group claims that the death toll is more than 20. However, the Taliban government questioned the figure, so it will issue a report on the total number of dead after the completion of the removal work. The attack was the third high-profile incident in the city during the last month of the past 2022. In Palestine, Israeli troops shot and killed 2 people on Monday during an incursion in the occupied West Bank area of Jenin. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported that the Israeli army killed 2 young men between the ages of 22 and 25 after they were shot multiple times. According to local authorities, the killings occurred as local citizens clashed with occupation forces who came to demolish 2 houses in the village of Karf Dan in the Jenin region. In addition, the Israeli operation left at least 3 injured, one of them in critical condition who was treated by health personnel in a local health center. On the other hand, the Palestinian Prisoners Studies Center reported that in the year 2022, about 7,000 Palestinians, including 164 women and 865 minors, were arrested by the Israeli regime's military forces. According to the statement, the Zionist occupiers carried out daily arrests, where most of them were subjected to torture and many of them remained prisoners of Israeli troops. The report further detailed that among the detained minors, some are forced to pay a total amount of $140,000 in fines and compensation for their freedom. In Syria, 2023 began with several terrorist attacks and a newly Israeli aggression. Such acts of violence seek to undermine the wishes of the Syrian people for a new year full of peace, security, and stability.
At dawn on Monday, January 2nd, the Israeli occupying army attacked Damascus International Airport. The airport was temporarily taken out of service. 2 Syrian officers were killed and 2 others were wounded. As a result of this first Zionist aggression against Syria in 2023.
Currently, there are signs of a possible rapprochement between Russia, Iran, Syria, and also Turkey, which worries the Zionist enemy because this rapprochement could help Syria to regain its strength and its prominent position in the region. And this goes against Israel's colonialist objectives, hence the latest attacks aimed at hindering any efforts of ending the war in Syria.
Un día antes, el primer día del nuevo año, los terroristas del Daesh albergados en la...
A day earlier, on January 1st, Daesh terrorists harbored in the illegal U.S. military base in the Syrian region of Al-Tanf, bordering Jordan and Iraq, killed 6 Syrian Arab army personnel and injured 2 others in an attack to several areas in the municipality of Palmyra in central Syria, and at least 10 employees in the Al-Taim oil field in the eastern province of Deir ez-Zor were killed by terrorist attacks to their bosses.
Perdieron la vida por acción terrorista contra sus autobuses.
It is clear that the United States and its terrorist proxies, as well as its regional allies, are sparing no efforts in preventing the resolution of the conflict in Syria to prolong the suffering of Syrians and the shedding of Syrian blood in order to serve their interests. Thus, such terrorist attacks aimed at frustrating the Syrian people who hoped for better days in the new year.
Syrians say that although the new Israeli aggression and the recent terrorist attacks stained with blood the beginning of the new year, they failed to frustrate them and make them lose their firm conviction and faith that 2023 could be the year of overcoming the bitterness of the war and the anguish of the Western economic blockade.
Hisham Wannous, teleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
In South Africa, the death toll from a gasoline truck explosion has risen to 34. According to emergency services officials, the explosion occurred at the Tambo Memorial Hospital in East Johannesburg, and 10 of the 34 dead were health workers. Health Minister Joe Fala informed that the emergency unit and the hospital X-ray department were severely affected. Authorities also reported that multiple houses and vehicles were damaged in the blast. In China, cities such as Beijing and Shanghai have already passed the peak of COVID-19 infections and predict that the outbreaks could affect rural areas. Experts from the Shanghai Public Health Center say that the country's cities have already gone through the worst of the new COVID-19 outbreak. The outlying areas of the country are expected to face a resurgence of the disease during the next few weeks due to the removal of most of the nation's health restrictions. Meanwhile, experts from the National Health Commission assured that they continue taking all measures to relieve the pressure on hospitals which have experienced intense weeks due to the increase in coronavirus cases, while they are still working to accelerate the vaccination process. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luiz Alberto. Thank you for watching.